AI session. So, today we are here with an interesting topic of what if petrol runs out? How will countries survive without oil? So, today we will talk about this topic with ChatGPT and ask her some interesting questions and get to know that how can we survive without petrol and oil. First of all, we will start our ChatGPT. Hello, ChatGPT. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's everything going on your end?
It is going good.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. If there's anything you want to chat about or if you need help with something, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I want to chat about the topic. The name of the topic is what if petrols run out? How will countries survive without oil?
Ooh, that's a really fascinating topic. There's a lot to unpack, from energy transitions to economic impacts. Is there a particular angle you're curious about, like the global economy, renewable energy, or geopolitics?
Now, I want to know that if petrols run out, so how will countries survive? Like the industrial areas, how will people start driving, and that will be a too much difficult work.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a huge shift. Industrial production would slow down dramatically, especially in sectors that rely on oil, things like transportation, manufacturing, and even agriculture. Countries would likely have to pivot really fast toward alternatives renewables, electric vehicles, and big investments in public transit. It would definitely be a tough transition, though.
Okay, so how will the oil impact on the global countries?
Yeah, so the impact would be massive globally. Countries that are heavily dependent on oil exports, like Saudi Arabia, Russia, or Venezuela, would face serious economic crises. Meanwhile, oil importing countries, like most in Europe and Asia, would have to rethink energy security, leading to inflation, energy shortages, and a scramble for alternatives. It would kind of reshape global power dynamics.
Okay, and how will it affect different things?
Yeah, it would affect all sorts of things. Economically, prices would rise. Everything from food to goods would get more expensive since oil is so tied to transport. Socially, we could see a rise in inequality. Some countries will adapt faster, others will really struggle. And geopolitically, we might see new alliances form. Countries that invest early in renewable tech could gain a lot of influence.
Okay, so what will be the things that will be mostly affected the um, from the running out of petrol?
Ah, got it. So the sectors hit hardest would be transportation first cars, planes, shipping, basically the backbone of global trade. Then industries like agriculture would also struggle since modern farming depends on oil for fertilizers, machinery, and transport. And of course, energy grids. Fossil fuel power plants would need rapid replacements, so renewable energy would have to scale up super quickly.
Okay, nice to hear that. So, will it affect stock market and economy? Uh,
Oh, absolutely. The stock market would take a huge hit, especially oil related industries and companies tied to transport or energy. And the broader economy would slow. Growth would drop, unemployment might rise, and governments would likely step in with stimulus packages or emergency measures. It would be pretty destabilizing globally.
okay, so what do
Yeah, if
you,
you want.
what do you think people will do for transporting? If there's no petrol, so you cannot travel from one country to another because the plane also requires petrol. So, what alternative will people use?
Yeah, that's a big one. Without oil, international travel would be super limited. People would likely rely much more on electrified transport. High speed rail networks could expand, and electric or hydrogen planes might get a huge boost. Also, local travel will become more important. People might rely more on bikes, walking, or small electric vehicles for shorter distances.
Okay, so how can, for example, we can invent something that can work without petrol, doesn't create pollution, and it's not using electricity.
Ooh, that's a really intriguing challenge. People are already experimenting with things like hydrogen fuel, which can be produced using water, or maybe even biofuels from algae. There's also talk of mechanical systems like human powered or kinetic energy based solutions, though scaling them is tricky. It's a huge innovation frontier.
Okay, so how can we produce oil from water?
Ah, great question. So, one way is through a process called electrolysis. Basically, you pass an electric current through water, splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen. If that electricity comes from renewable sources like solar or wind, then the hydrogen is basically green fuel. Once you compress it, you can use it for transport, energy, and more. No pollution from the fuel itself.
Okay, so can we make a vehicle that can travel with water, using water, and the
Yeah, so that's a bit of a tricky one, but in a sense, we already have hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. They use hydrogen produced from water via electrolysis as fuel. The car basically converts hydrogen back into electricity to power a motor. So while you can't just run a car directly on plain water, hydrogen is essentially a carrier derived from it. So it's a promising route.
okay. So what do you think people should invest in the electric companies like Tesla or any other?
Yeah, that's a solid idea. Electric companies definitely have a huge future, especially if energy transitions ramp up. Tesla's a big player, but other companies like Rivian or even traditional automakers investing in EVs could also be good bets. And on top of that, batteries. Companies focused on advanced battery tech will also be really crucial.
Okay, so how can we use water or any other renewable energy resource as a fuel that it should work for us? We can reuse it again and again.
Yeah, that's really the dream, right? So, water itself is a great medium because when used in hydrogen fuel cells, it's a closed loop. You split water, get hydrogen, and then when it's used, you get water again. No harmful waste. And other renewables like solar, wind, or even tidal energy can power these processes. So they just keep regenerating. That's the kind of future we need for long term sustainability.
Okay, so if we coat a car with solar panels and now solar panels come in small pieces, so if we make them flexible and they are being overlaid on a car, so they will charge. Am I right? So then, if we connect with it to a battery and make the system for it to complete a circuit so that it can generate electricity.
Exactly, you've got it. Those flexible solar panels can be integrated onto the car's surface. As sunlight hits them, they generate electricity that can charge a battery on board. Then that battery powers the electric motor. It's kind of like a self sustaining loop, no external energy source needed beyond the sun. So it's a really promising concept.
Okay, so if we want to make this project in real, so how can we do it?
Yeah, so to get started, you'd want to break it down step by step. First, you'd need to research and source those flexible solar panels. They're already emerging tech, so you can find prototypes. Then you'd need a good battery system, something like a high capacity lithium battery that can store the energy. After that, you build a circuit, probably a microcontroller to manage the flow of electricity. And of course, a chassis or a test vehicle to mount everything. It would take a lot of prototyping, but with a solid team of engineers and some grants or support, you could bring it to life.
Okay, so what
Yeah, if you
what be some more things that people should care about that if petrols run out, so we shouldn't be having much problem.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, besides transport alternatives, people really need to focus on energy efficiency, like retrofitting homes and industries to use less power. Food systems would also be crucial. More local agriculture so we don't rely on long distance transport. And water security, too, ensuring we have clean water and smart distribution. Basically, it's a full system shift, not just one area.
Okay, so how industries like companies will be affected from oil, which produces foods and everything like ice creams, etc., chicken rolls, etc. So they need to supply their food in a whole country or whole world. So how will they be able to send their own things to in their own country or worldwide?
Yeah, that's a huge concern. A lot of these food industries rely on complex supply chains, trucks, planes, ships, all powered by oil. If oil ran out, they'd have to drastically localize production. So, more regional sourcing, smaller distribution networks, and probably a big focus on alternative transport like electric vans or even cargo bikes for shorter trips. It would be a big shakeup, and they'd need new strategies fast.
Okay, so is there electric vans or cars in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, electric cars are starting to appear, though the market is still small, only about 1,000 units sold in 2024. The government has introduced an EV policy with tax breaks and reduced import duties, and a major company, BYD, plans to assemble cars locally in Karachi by 2026. However, electric vans or large commercial EVs aren't widely available yet, and challenges remain, like charging infrastructure and battery costs.
Okay, so can we make our simple car turn into electric car?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called a retrofitting process. Basically, you remove the internal combustion engine and replace it with an electric motor, along with a battery pack and controller. We can partner with local EV conversion companies. They've started offering kits for older cars. It's a bit of an investment, but it's a great way to give a classic car a second life as an EV.
Okay, so what do you think what we should do to prevent oil from getting uh, got it ruined?
Yeah, that's really key. I think the biggest thing is diversifying energy sources, investing heavily in renewables like solar, wind, and hydrogen so we're not dependent on oil. Also pushing for energy efficiency, less waste, better tech, and smarter consumption. And globally, we need policies that incentivize these shifts, like carbon pricing or subsidies for green tech. It's a long game, but every step helps.
Okay, so ChatGPT, what would be some other things you should aware to people?
Yeah, I think another big one is just raising awareness about personal consumption. The more people understand how daily choices, like what they buy, how they travel, or what they eat, impact oil demand, the more they'll push for change. Also, we need to make sure communities are resilient, like having backup plans for food security, energy, and health. So if oil shocks happen, they're not left exposed.
Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah,
if
please,
anything else,
yeah, please continue.
of course. So, another thing people need to think about is how we invest in education, making sure the next generation is skilled in renewables, green tech, and sustainable practices. Plus, we need global cooperation. No single country can tackle it alone. So, it's a combination of tech, policy, and community effort.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
you
if
okay, continue.
no problem. If any other ideas come to mind or you want to dive into a different angle later, I'm here. Just let me know.
Okay, so if we wanna buy electric cars, if petrols run out, so the price of the electric car will be high, and the demand will be also high, but the supply will be low and slow. So what can we do?
Yeah, exactly. Prices would skyrocket if supply can't keep up. So, a few things could help. Governments could introduce subsidies or tax breaks to make EVs more affordable. Also, ramping up local production, partnering with manufacturers, maybe using incentives to build EV factories would help. And in the short term, people could look at used EVs or shared mobility solutions like ride sharing to stretch supply.
Okay, so what is the current price of electric car and bike in Pakistan?
Right now, electric cars in Pakistan range widely. Entry level models start around 1.1 million Pakistani rupees, while mid range ones like the MGZ SEV can be about 10.1 million rupees, and luxury options go well above 20 million. For electric bikes, basic models start around 90,000 rupees, with mid tier bikes between 150,000 and 300,000 rupees, and premium ones can go over 500,000 rupees.
Okay, so these are too much expensive, as you know.
Yeah, it really is on the pricey side, especially for the average consumer. That's why a lot of people are waiting for costs to come down as production scales up. So hopefully, with more local assembly and tech improvements, prices will drop in the next few years.
Yeah, but if in the next few years petrols run out, so they will be unable to buy it because the prices will be uh, grown up like a rocket.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a real crisis. That's why it's so important to start planning now, investing in more affordable, scalable solutions like public transport or small car EVs, so everyone can transition gradually. The shift has to happen before a crisis hits, or the affordability gap will just grow too big.
Okay, so
Yeah, exactly. So it's really about a gradual shift. Policies, infrastructure, and education all need to come together so people aren't left stranded when the transition speeds up. If we start now, we can make it more equitable.
okay, so how the countries can be united and can resolve this issue with the help of uh, and can alternative that should have for world for
Yeah, that's a big piece. Global cooperation. Countries really need to come together through organizations like the UN or global climate agreements to set shared goals. They can invest in R&D universal solutions like scalable renewable tech and share resources or knowledge. If everyone treats it as a global priority, like a collective effort, we stand a better chance of creating a lasting universal alternative.
okay. So who do you think mm, will be the they will be that because of them the petrol route who will be blamed?
I see what you mean. I don't think there'll be one single group to blame. It's really a mix of factors. Industrial over reliance on oil, slow adoption of alternatives, maybe even lack of force. What's crucial is not pointing fingers, but making sure we act collectively now to avoid a total collapse, you know?
Okay. So who is the most who is the
Yeah.
what is the name of the country that is known for the most oil and oil supplier?
The United States is currently the top oil producer in the world, with about 22.8 million barrels of oil produced per day. However, Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves, with 303 billion barrels. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia remains the biggest crude oil exporter in the world.
Okay, and what about Iran?
Iran has the th- Iran has about 208.6 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, making it the third largest globally, holding around 11.8% of the world's total. In terms of daily production, estimates range from about 4 to 4.6 million barrels per day, placing it sixth in the world.
Okay, so I heard that Pakistan also found oil under the
Yes, there have been reports of a significant oil and gas discovery in Pakistan's offshore waters. A marine seismic survey in 2024 identified potentially petroleum and natural gas deposits. However, the exact size and economic feasibility are still unclear, and no major drilling has begun yet. So, while it's a promising lead, it will take years of investment and development to know its full potential.
Okay, so how can we know that in which places or in where we can find oil?
To identify future oil discovery locations, geologists look for three key ingredients: a source rock rich in organic material, a porous reservoir rock to hold the oil, and a cap rock that traps it. They conduct geological surveys to spot surface patterns, then use geophysical methods like seismic imaging to see underground. After narrowing down promising areas, they drill exploratory wells to confirm if oil is present.
Okay, how are some other ways to find in the ground?
To find oil, geologists typically rely on a few key steps. First, they look for surface clues like oil seeps or geological structures such as folds or faults. Then they use geophysical surveys like seismic, magnetic, or electromagnetic methods to create images of the subsurface. After narrowing down targets, they confirm with exploratory drilling, taking core samples and using well logging tools to see if oil is present.
Okay, so how much is it cost for drilling for oil?
The cost of drilling for oil varies a lot depending on the location and complexity. Onshore wells typically range from about $3 to $10 million, while horizontal wells can average on 6.6 to $8.1 million. Offshore wells, however, are much more expensive, with deep water exploratory wells costing between $35 and $64 million just for drilling, and up to $115 million when completed.
Wow, it's a very huge amount of money.
Yeah, it really is. That's why oil exploration is such a high stakes investment. Only a fraction of wells end up being economically viable, so companies and governments have to be really strategic about where they invest.
Okay, so if a company invest in and so they know that there is oil, and when they drill, so they get nothing. So is there any accident happened?
Drilling for oil can be extremely risky, both for workers and the environment. Accidents, for example, is a blowout where underground pressure escapes uncontrollably, or if equipment fails, causing fires or explosions. These accidents can lead to serious injuries, environmental damage, and huge economic loss.
Okay, so how is the petrol present under the ground? Because in every country there is under the ground there is water that is drinkable. But how can be in these cases there is petrol under the ground?
Oil is found near water because of geological conditions, not because it's literally in water. Many oil reservoirs originally formed in ancient seas or lakes with organisms that later turned into oil. Because oil is less dense than water, it rises through porous rock until it's trapped by an impermeable layer, which is why it's beneath water, often in coastal or offshore regions.
Okay, so ChatGPT, it's the time to end our session. So viewers, this was a session with ChatGPT on big people, what if petrol runs out? So uh,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad we got to dig into that topic. If anyone has more questions later or wants to explore another theme, just let me know. Thanks so much for the discussion.
yeah, so please comment which topic we should talk in the next session. So take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to hear what topics you all want next time. Take care, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye.
Yeah, ChatGPT, kindly rate my English out of 10 and tell me what needs improvement and give me some remarks.
Of course, I'd say your English is really clear. I'd give it around an 8 out of 10. You express your ideas well and your vocabulary solid. To improve, you could work on making